In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. They promise it'll get better, but it usually gets worse. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data, so we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, and other industry scandals are designed to keep the money flowing. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing, so they do a virus scan and then wipe out our precious photos. Intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office overlooking the can of worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. My name is Mark Anthony Arena, and I am so glad you joined me today. Today we have, and I wish y'all could see him because he's just so happy about this. Today we have a Rochester... we have a Rochester escapee named John Hanson. I told him how much he's going to love the other show I do called Flyover Plates, and I can't wait to get his opinion on that. So that show is for people who escaped Rochester and want to know how far it's decayed. So, John Hanson, I'm so lucky to have met you recently through our beloved Kara Jean, who is one of our prior guests and just a brilliant person. So, tell us how you escaped. How did you manage to escape Rochester? Nothing else matters. I don't care what you're doing now. How did you get out?
No. Yeah. It's one of those things where we treasure our childhood and our upbringing, no matter how depressing and dysfunctional and sad the aspects of it could be. I do have some great memories, of things that probably don't exist anymore or in disrepair. Nevertheless, I do have some pleasant memories of Western New York. And as far as the nature aspect of it, gorgeous nature. I mean, Niagara Falls, Letchworth State Park, the Finger Lakes region, like Western New York knocks it out of the park there. The thing that people don't touch. Now, all the other stuff, that's a different thing. So what got me away from the area was not too far south, Western PA, went through a training program when I was graduated from high school. That got me over to Central Ohio through connections that way. So, and Central Ohio, I've been connected with that area since 95. So 95 to now, that's pretty dang close to 30 years if my horrible math is correct. So that's how I escaped. Through Western PA that got me connected to Central Ohio, and I've been connected with that area since 95. So that's what got me out. We talked about this, Mark. It's only when you come back after a significant period of time to Western New York, and I've been a Bills fan my whole life, still am. Just pull for that team. But that's you don't realize until you're back in an area how you feel how an area is compared
there's
to
a feeling.
There's like an energy that's underneath when it comes to Central Ohio. As Midwestern Bible Belt, dip our toe in the water, not really too bold or aggressive or go after things, but just the energy of what's happening in Central Ohio.
I wish I could express it in words, but yes, I travel a lot to keep my sanity.
Yeah. Good.
But I have a feeling whenever I go somewhere, it's a feeling. And Rochester is definitely this feeling of, I want to say just ignorance and bliss, where it's like, we have no clue that our city's burning down, but we're so obsessed with watching the Bills this Sunday that nothing else matters.
If we didn't have the Buffalo Bills in Western New York, and I could speak to that very clearly, Oh my gosh, mental health would not just be a crisis; it would be it'd be a ghost town in Western New York because you have basically living zombies walking around. Because
and that's what happens.
Bills is really the only thing.
In the off season, that's what happens. They don't know what to do with themselves, and they don't know who to worship in the meantime.
And rightly so. I mean, it's the most exciting it's ever been for the Buffalo Bills since the heyday back when I was a kid, and they went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Right. To me, I do think that this, though, is there's always, as an eternal optimist, there is always opportunity. There's always potential. And just the viewpoint of something that the Bills, who were in a lot of people's minds underrated, didn't really have a lot of superstars. They had a skilled, hardworking, great team, great chemistry. They accomplished something that no other team has done yet to date, and probably won't in today's. I can't say won't. If young quarterbacks stay healthy, there is a possibility that could happen again. But 4 in a row, just remarkable. 4 opportunities to win. How many teams have never even gotten there, right? I'm not rubbing it into Cleveland, say, or any of those other cities that would love to have and would probably literally donate an arm just to have the opportunity to be in a Super Bowl, let alone have a chance to win it. Scott Norwood, poor guy, bless his heart, and say all you want to say about, we should have put ourselves in a better spot to win. Like, oh, no, that's why they pay you millions of dollars. So back then it might not have been millions of dollars. I don't know. Nevertheless, there's always opportunity and potential. In Western New York, I still think can, because of that blue-collar work ethic of grit. If you can combine that with an entrepreneurial spark, I think there's always an opportunity.
And that's what I try to tell people, but it's, a prophet is not welcome in his own town. I try to tell people, like, hey, there's something more to life than just the Bills and selling each other health insurance and pyramid schemes, but no one wants to hear it. It's like, hey, I've got this great opportunity here. We can stop the flow of money and power to Silicon Valley. I've got this unique idea, and people are like, no, I like familiarity.
But why not sell to each other that way we don't have to sell to anybody we don't know?
Right.
But that's part of the problem. You're really limiting your base of customers if you're only selling to each other, which is basically MLM on steroids. That's what the city economy is driven by. Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly it. The city is a snow globe, right? Or one of those tanks with the seahorses, whatever. Yeah. That's all it is. So real quick, what do you do now?
Oh, so right now, not only do I have a 9-to-5 sales role that I enjoy, but more importantly, more exciting for me, is that I do a combination of things. I do public speaking, I do workshop facilitation, I write books. I'm launching my 4th one in the fall and on a schedule to release 2 new books every year for the next few years. And then I do business-to-business business coaching, so B2B business coaching. I do that too. LinkedIn is my favorite platform, so I have some expertise in that area. But I just love to work with entrepreneurial, growth-minded businesses that are like, how can we get where we want to go sooner with less effort? I can help you with that as long as they're open to reinventing themselves somewhat. And that's where the entrepreneurial part comes in.
So two huge points that just come to mind now. Number one, a couple of months ago, I was pulling out this little 3 foot by 3 foot rotten wooden deck that was at my back door, right outside here. And I was pulling it out plank by plank with the crowbar and all that. And it was taking a while, and I got stuck at one point. So I'm halfway done, and I'm stuck. And I'm like, oh, great. Now and I'm sitting there, and I'm stuck. What do I do? And I said, oh, wait a minute. Why don't I just pull the piece at the bottom? Didn't think it would work, but I pulled at the piece at the bottom, and the whole shebang came out.
Whoa.
Right? So it's like you said, getting somewhere sooner and easier than you thought possible. Here I was thinking, all right, I'm stuck. I'm going to have to call my dad and get a saw and blah, blah, blah again. And it just, you look at it from a different perspective, and all of a sudden it popped right out. And, oh, I don't have to go through all this. So I'm trying to do that with my life. but that brings up a huge point. And folks, I want to tell you something huge. I've talked to tons of consultants over the past 10 years or so and expressed my frustration with them as, hey, I got this great idea, and I've got this great idea that can solve the entire computer industry. You don't need to suffer anymore, and I can bulletproof people's home computers. I'm the only guy in the world who knows how to do this with modern training. Everyone else is using ancient tools. And most of the time, people say this: well, Mark, you should create a corporate structure where you control a bunch of technicians. So in the back of my mind, like, my head's burning and my blood's boiling, and I can't express it in words, but I think at this point I can finally describe it as, okay, so you want me to take my idea, because I'm the knowledge guy and I have the cure for cancer, so to speak, the cure for this industry, and you want me to spend 99% of my life doing what I'm worst at, which is babysitting people? So John comes along, and I talked to him for 5 minutes. I said, John, I got this great idea. I can bulletproof people's computers. And he goes, oh. He goes, well, why don't you go on a speaking tour and then have local independent affiliates? And I said, that's what was on my mind all of this time. And you solved it. I mean, you read my mind. And it took him 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's, the danger, there's a tremendous danger to grit, to blue collar work ethic. And that's exactly what you talked about with your porch example of, like, you could have gritted it out, put in the work, pulled in more, done more resources, worked with others to do something that would have gotten the job done. See, the result would have been there. But the effort that it took to get the result without just taking a break, taking a fresh look and innovating just a little bit, saved you how much time and effort and ended up in the same result.
And
that's where someone with an entrepreneurial point of view, if you don't have that spirit, you've got work ethic. Nobody questions that, okay?
Yeah.
We know Western New York knows how to work. It's probably from our, German, whatever background that Western New York has a lot of. Just the blue collar, right? And there's it's better than the alternative, which is you don't have a work ethic. But somewhere
and that's what's happening now, by the way. All 6 young people left here.
There's the middle of that. Yeah, somewhere in between. You, if you can identify people who are entrepreneurial, you've got that spark, and then you get a room full of them. That could be sometimes all it takes to be a catalyst that can have that growth, regardless of the hurdles and the friction that's thrown in the way by the community, by the mindset, by the regulations, things that you can't control. But the things you can control is who's in the room with you. We talked about this earlier, the entrepreneurial idea people, Mark, right? When you're in a room with entrepreneurial idea people, those are the ones that you want to brainstorm with. It doesn't matter how many things actually stick. You're all throwing spaghetti at the wall together. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And you're coming up with wild ideas, and who cares? You might want to think outside the boxes. One of them might turn out to be a winner, as weird as it might sound initially.
Right. As opposed to the blue collar grit work ethic idea of, like, I'm going to do the steps. I'm going to go to the events. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to do my elevator pitches. I'm going to, regardless of whether that person standing in front of you is a horrible, never fit, not aligned, not going anywhere in life. Look, if they want to do MLM Tupperware and you want to do technology, this is not a match made in heaven. This isn't even a match made in hell. This isn't a match. But you've got to identify who's in the room. So I learned this the hard way, Mark, in my time of networking, which is a couple of years. I'd have people all the time that I would talk to. I learned how to read the room. It is better, Mark, if you go to any kind of event and you identify in a crowd of 200 people, one person you're aligned with.
As opposed to wasting your time with everyone else.
Oh,
wow,
you're trying to read the room and look who's got that vibe. You can spot it, Mark. I know you can. You can spot, like, who's likely, far more likely to be aligned. I don't know until I talk to them, but as soon as I do, I'll know. And that could be a 5 minute that turns into 5 hours and coffee and collaboration, or it could be 5 minutes of, like, close but not quite. Who else in the room looks like that person?
Or who needs me? Yeah.
Trust your gut. Trust your vibe meter. Like, this person, there's just clues. If they show up and you start talking and they pitch you and then don't even ask you about what you do.
Right.
They're just going through the motions.
And
they're high energy. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Yeah, they're just trying to push. And I try in my old age now, I've learned, okay, ask people about themselves. Even dating, ask her about herself. And so I've learned that. But it's right. You can put that judgmental nature to good use instead of sitting there looking at the room kind of, because I do that naturally. I look around the room and I start kind of criticizing people like, oh, they're not dressed right or they're not whatever. So it's like, okay, John's teaching me how to use my critical nature to good use.
Do you know where the word criticism, where it comes from?
No.
It's fascinating. People think it's negative. It's not. Criticism, when you go study back the Latin, like I did when I wrote my book last year, it's the art of studying art. Criticism is not negative. Criticism is the ability to assess value.
Whoa.
Potential value. So when you're a room of people and you're being critical, that's wonderful. That's excellent.
If you're doing it the right way, yeah.
Because the hustle and grind, hard work, grit, blue collar, get it done type people are not reading the room. They're not being critical. They're just being hard workers.
They're just, I'm going to work hard by talking to each person and giving my card to each person.
Yes.
I'm going to give my card to each person. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Save
that's the
your
mindset.
cards for the ones that are worth having your card.
Great.
And if that's one person, awesome. You're going to get far more with that one conversation than you will ever have with the other 49 or 99. When you're critical, then you are looking for that fine piece of art.
Yeah.
Criticism, when you're looking for a multi-million-dollar work of art, needs to be. They want to spend their money on real works of art. Now, I know art is subjective. I get it.
Right.
I get it.
And that's fine
but
too.
What is of high value to you?
Just like you said about learning things the hard way, I spent my whole career learning everything the hard way. And I spent most of my career throwing pearls before swine, right? Which is wasting my effort on people or things that don't care about me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I learned there. And to go back to our analogy here about my back deck, is that that's another thing that I'm writing about in my next book, how I was so good at working and proving to myself, I'm a hard worker, right? I would work 12-hour days, but guess what? If y'all know out there about how to drive a manual, right? Or even if you just ride a bike with 10 speeds, when you're in low gear, you're working all day, but you get nowhere, right? So here I was working 10, 12 hours a day, and wait a minute, Mark, you have this great thing that can supposedly help the world with technology, but you're only helping 2 people a day. So I'm working 12 hours a day, helping 2, 3, 4 people a day. Okay, Mark, why don't you stop for a second and figure out how you can work smarter, okay? Train some people. And I had to, and my mom always says, Mark, nobody is you. Okay, fine, nobody's me. But my buddy Dennis always reminds me, Mark, you're a battlefield surgeon. No one's going to be you, but at least if you can get a couple people to do some of what you do. So this year, I've taken the whole new radical approach. Instead of overwhelming people with, hey, this is a great idea, you should do this for a living. Now it's, hey, look, I'm going to give you a core concept. Go out there and see how it works. And I'm going to teach you how to remove Norton and McAfee to protect people from those threats. And that's it. Just start there. And even that alone, right? Instead of holding this idea close to my chest, but then no one out there being helped by it.
Your analogy, too, of the bike, by the way, is phenomenal. Just like with a car in first gear. Oh, you're getting somewhere all right. But how hard is that engine overworking to get the same to get less distance down the road than if you actually progressed through the gears? That's the whole idea of momentum. Like, get it going on your side, get it going in your favor, as opposed to always trying to get the momentum going. If you're stuck in first gear, people confuse busyness with productivity.
That's it. That's the way to summarize that. Yeah.
And that creates what John Cotter calls a false sense of urgency, which is worse than apathy. Why? Because apathy, everybody can spot that. The deceptive part about a false sense of urgency is that like George Costanza, I'm so busy. Yeah,
he never got anything done.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Do you really want to be George Costanza, or do you want to get stuff done? Well, if you want to get stuff done, then you need to figure out how to have a true sense of urgency, which is, how do I win today? If you find people with that kind of a sense of urgency, and I don't mean win like you get to the ultimate goal. No. People that are entrepreneurial understand that part of that process is figuring out what doesn't work, figuring out what does work, the learning curve. All of that is a win because you're figuring it out.
And if I upshift,
doing it, once I upshift, I'll see an immediate increase in productivity.
Incredible. I'm getting somewhere with less effort and less amount of time per day.
Yep.
Right? If I could, right? Because when I go to someone's house, I give them my whole spiel. As I'm cleaning their computer, I give them the whole spiel about the industry and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that all day, every day to individuals, and it's great, you know, it helps me get something off my chest, and that's great. But now, for example, tonight I'm teaching a webinar. And a couple weeks back, I taught a webinar to a couple guys, and I'm going to give out that knowledge, and they're going to take it, and they're going to run with it to their respective cities. And it's incredible. All of a sudden,
by it. Boom.
That's what one guy said. He said, "Mark, I'm fired up," and that. So it's like I can almost feel it in my body, where it's like you're in a car and a bike or whatever, and you upshift, and wow. I'm going faster and my engine's not spinning, and guess what? It was ruining my body, just like it ruins an engine or ruins your legs to be in low gear.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
high
so
RPMs.
The power of synergy, Mark. This is I discovered this also when I was put in my book last year. Synergy. Draft horses, Belgian Shires, those massive
tell me
stems,
about
right?
this. Yeah, you have this thing about this, yeah?
Yeah. This is fantastic. One draft horse can pull 8,000 pounds, 4 tons, right? Now, you'd think if we add another horse, it's going to double that. So 2 horses should be able to pull 16,000 pounds or 8 tons.
So we think 1 plus 1 is 2, right?
That's right. No. With synergy, when you are aligned with somebody, you're both pulling together. That's the key, both pulling together. Then it triples. It goes from 8,000 pounds to 24,000 pounds. 2 draft horses pulling together can pull 12 tons, not 8. So when you think about that and you get enough people aligned synergistically, the multiplying effect and return and gain and wins is not an adder, it's a multiplier.
And I love that analogy exists in the physical world just to teach us, right? It's as if God put that there to teach us. Hey, folks, guess what? So you're saying 1 draft horse can pull 4,000 pounds. Is that right?
Can pull 8.
8,000
pounds. Yep.
1 draft horse can pull 8.
8,000
so you'd think that 2 of them would pull 16, but in reality, 2 of them are actually pulling 24.
24,000. If they're both, and that's the key, if they're both pulling together.
Yeah.
Because I've seen teams where one is just working their butt off, and the other is like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. That's where alignment is so important, because when you are aligned, now you're tripling your return as opposed to doubling it.
When the yoke is aligned.
Yep.
That's nuts. I'm so glad you brought that up because you explained that to me the other day and my mind was so blown here, folks. So I really need to digest that, right? So you'd think 1 draft horse, 8,000 pounds, 2 draft horses, 16. But in reality, instead of multiplying by 2, it multiplies by 3. That is incredible. And that's absolutely what I'm feeling already in the early stages here. I'm starting to teach these folks. And it's, hey, look, I'm just going to teach you again, core concept. Teach you 1 hour of just me teaching you core concept, then they're off to the races and they're already impressing people. And here I was again, it was my fault because I thought that I had to wait until I had a perfectly polished, extremely intricate training program, right? I spent 15 years thinking that I needed to do a training program. Back in 2012, I could have just started teaching people the basics. So that's
getting fired up on the concept, right?
On the basic concepts, but I thought I had to, and I've done that several times in my life. But
you're not the only
one.
That's what we think is that I've got to have an iPhone 12 before I take it public. Well, before the iPhone 12, there were a few other iterations. They didn't stop with the iPhone 1. I guess it was just called iPhone at that point. Now we're up to, I don't know, we're up to 14, 15, 16, something like that. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's going to always improve. When you're in a concept that is entrepreneurial, continuous improvement is baked into the model. It's always going to get better. But you do have to start somewhere. You do have to offer something of value that people are going to use and run with. And the technology is a proof of that. So
and what I should have done is offered what they call minimum viable product, right? A product that's simple MVP, and solid, right? Simple and solid, instead of waiting 10 years, being behind everybody else. Meanwhile, all sorts of other things are coming out and passing me by, and it's like, oh, wait, here's this thing that I have that I've been hiding from people because I didn't think it was ready enough.
But you know what, though, Mark? The only worse day to start something than today
is tomorrow. Yeah, that's great. So it's okay, and we could go off on a religious tangent about this, but But basically, Jesus says, okay, stop what you're doing. Who cares about what happened in the past? Forget about it and start today. And I don't care what you did as long as you get behind me get with me and let's keep going.
Yeah, tomorrow has enough concerns of itself. Be focused on today. And when we learn from what we gained in the past, because our hindsight is always perfectly 20/20, when you apply that into today, then you're going to be a whole lot closer tomorrow to where you want to be.
That's it. And even if it's a little, hey, Mark, do 10 minutes a day on this project, right? It's better than 0 minutes and worrying about it.
Yes.
Just do 10 minutes, Mark.
It compounds. Yes. It doesn't just add up. Effort compounds.
I love that too. The sprocket thing. Yeah. And it's where it's, okay, Mark, instead of what I usually do, which is expect huge projects out of myself, it's, okay, Mark, just do 10 minutes a day. And then my brain goes, 10 minutes? I could totally do 15 or 20. So if you lower that expectation instead of overwhelming yourself. Okay, so in the last 5 minutes here, I'm going to read a real quick article. That was a phenomenal discussion, John. So BBC, June 2021, the Zoom towns luring remote workers to rural enclaves. Right? So Boomtown is the old saying, and now we're calling it Zoomtown. It's for people who can work through the Zoom software and work remotely, and they don't have to be there.
Yep. Okay.
As remote work takes hold, rural Zoom towns are popping up all over the U.S. For outdoorsy workers, the options are an embarrassment of riches. Los Angeles native Chanel always wanted to live close to nature in a place where she could run, bike, and swim away from the city noise. So when her job as a digital marketing manager went fully remote, the 30-year-old made a dramatic move that would have been unimaginable before the pandemic. She traded Hollywood Hills for the Ozarks of Arkansas. She was one of 30,000 applicants from 115 countries who applied for the Life Works Here Talent Initiative. So she wasn't just going there for she was also getting a bonus from the Walmart Heirs. Successful candidates receive 10 grand if they relocate for at least a year, plus outdoor perks like a free bike. And there's a lot of people, by the way, who aren't even getting the incentives, right? They're just going, right? I had a buddy who came back to Rochester, and he built a barn dominium, and he and his family live here. He came back from Miami, whatever, and he works remotely. She bikes, she bikes 3 times a week, sometimes with a group of cyclists. The newly remote worker also found a social club with a co-working space, which she says is a great place to interact with like-minded, career-driven individuals. I need that. I need to meet some career people.
Oh, gosh. There's got to be a couple in Rochester anyways.
Yeah, there is like 7 or 8 young people. So 1 in 20 U.S. adults have moved because of COVID. Many are urbanites from coastal cities like New York and San Francisco who were spurred from this growing disconnect between stagnant wages and rising living costs, as well as the prospect of bigger spaces and access to nature in the American interior. It's not like the Aussie outback where it's completely barren. The American interior. It's the flyover states have cities, people. Okay?
They do. Some pretty big ones, actually, is what I've heard.
Yeah, Chicago and Omaha. The American interior, where there's nothing but kangaroos.
I know, because Australia is definitely like that. Their interior is so barren, right?
So
compared to the coastal areas, the U.S. is not like that.
right. So these BBC
you'll
folks
drive through
don't know
cornfields
that
for hours, and then boom, there's a city. That is true, but there's still a city there.
The American interior. The rise of outdoorsy Zoom towns. Oil and mineral discoveries once led to boom towns. Okay, regional communities that are near natural resources. And now we have amenity migrants. Overlooked communities like Fayetteville have turned to cash incentives to capitalize on the trend. Okay, so some people are just moving there because they know about it, right? Like Moab and Durango. But other towns have to incentivize people with money. Okay, great. So Cape Cod was always slightly expensive after the people discovered it as a vacation spot. But now, I was talking to someone the other day who said that real estate in Cape Cod, little tiny house would go for 250 grand before the pandemic. Now it's going for 600 grand easily because these Boston people want to go there and work remotely. And same thing with Rochester. These Manhattanites are buying up. So before the pandemic, I was ready to buy a house and I could totally afford any house I wanted in Rochester. Boom, pandemic hits. Now I'm back to square one. Like, oh, great. Now I went back to not being able to afford a house. I eventually found one, but Similar incentive programs have popped up in nature-rich states like Arizona. They're giving enthusiasts $7,600 in cash. Yeah, that's what they're cash, goods, and services to use as a base for work and adventure. The first 10 finalists for the initiative hold companies at Apple, Pfizer, Facebook, and LinkedIn are arriving now, and so on. Ascend West Virginia takes the outdoor incentives further. Participants not only receive $12,000 to locate to West Virginia, but also an adventure package and free gear rental to cover a year's worth of paddling and biking and climbing and rafting in the Appalachians. And you know what? Wow. That's nice, because West Virginia is one of those states that is economically depressed but nature rich, just like Western New York. So that's huge, right? Folks, if you, that's normally my articles I read are about bad news, but folks, look, that's a really good thing that's happening. And the utter stagnation, the mentality of Rochester is so stagnant that we need something, we need a little airflow, right? Crack open a window and bring in some new people to eliminate the extreme stagnation of the Rochester mentality, right? So it is a good thing that people are coming up here and discovering it. We're stirring the pot, as it were. But really, folks, Mark Arena could have bought a house, no problem. And then all of a sudden the prices double here. So about half of Americans who responded to a poll at the end of 2020 said if they were able to live anywhere they wished, they would choose a town or rural area. Absolutely. I lived for 5 years out in a semi-rural area, and it was annoying because I have to be everywhere. I have to drive downtown and see my clients all the time. It's my job is like that. But eventually, when I get to a point where I'm upshifting and I'm teaching folks, I'll be able to work from my laptop from rural Rochester or from Aruba or from anywhere I want. And that's my life goal. So our goal was to create a way to differentiate West Virginia by promoting our unparalleled outdoor assets. The state has seen the highest population decline in America. Right, so same thing, West Virginia and New York, same boat. What we're seeing in some communities is rural gentrification, which is having a spillover effect where people can't afford to live in those communities anymore, such as Mark. And, an opportunity to diversify their economy. That's a great point, right? Because we need people who are more than just health insurance selling each other health insurance all day. Right. So that's great. Instead of pensioners retiring to nature, which is what at Rochester has been, it's just people who are retired because there's no jobs. You have people who are still employed and have families and have kids in school. Imagine that. The next question is, are these Zoom towns here to stay? Once they reach the tipping point, when they're a pretty cool town with a nice coffee shop and cool bars and good restaurants, then they get over the hump and they become a place where people want to stay. Final comments, John D. Hanson, the brilliant.
Yeah, it's the pace of change, Mark. I attended a pre-COVID. There was a workshop run by a brilliant PhD, and she was talking about the pace of change. At the beginning of the 1900s, companies could reinvent themselves every 75 years and be just fine. By the 80s, that had sped up to every 15 years. By the turn of this century, 2000 was every 5. Imagine where we are now. So if any community, any area, any company, any person is the same person they were 5 years ago, let alone perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, the odds are you're already getting passed up. Now, does that mean you have to totally reinvent yourself and what you do? No. Does it mean you need to take a fresh look at where you are and where you want to be and what you may need to do to get there? Yes, because the vehicle that got you to this point is not going to be the same vehicle that's going to get you to the next point.
Yeah, and don't do it in a haphazard way.
No, plan that sucker out. Like, if you're going to go to another vehicle, do your research first about what vehicle is going to be the best fit for you. Once you've identified that, get that thing, because that's I'm not talking like disposable society here where it's only good for 2-3 years. What I'm saying is the pace of change is so fast nowadays that for you as a person or you as a company or you as a community, if you're not already figuring out how to reinvent in the next 2-3 years, then you're already behind. And so what we see is communities that are stuck in this rut have never looked at reinventing themselves. Or if they have, they're doing the same old things that they used to do that used to work and don't, and then they're confused why it doesn't. And that's only because of the pace of change.
Oh, and that's a great
Not because
point.
they couldn't do it, not because there isn't potential or opportunity. It's that they're doing it the way that used to work, and now it doesn't.
Yeah, and Western New York, actually, there was this ridiculous plan a year or two ago where they were just going to build casinos everywhere because the pea-brains in the government in New York said, oh, casino equals good. I get money from casino. Let's make more casinos. And they were just going to plop casinos in every overrun, abandoned downtown area in Western New York and just, I like that. Or they were going to do, actually, I think they started this in Rochester. They were going to reward people for staying home, that basic income thing where it's like, hey, stay home,
universal
that'll
basic
help us.
life income.
And like you were saying, doing the same thing over and over again, and then wondering why everyone shoots each other afterward.
Yeah. Or why do we not have why are tax bases crumbling? Well, because they're spending it at the casino, or because your revenues come from either higher income, so your tax base, or from higher revenues for your businesses. And if neither one of those things are happening, that's where you make the money, not from people spending. I know there is sales tax, but that pales in comparison because the things you're talking about pushing people to do doesn't include sales tax. They have to have money to spend. So how are they going to have disposable income? They have to have an abundance beyond what they make to pay for their cost of living, which has gone up significantly. The only way you're going to do that is to figure out how do we attract and keep the higher paying, high demand jobs that bring in out of state dollars in particular to fund in this area, because the cost to open a branch in Rochester compared to doing it in downtown Chicago or LA or Houston or wherever the hot spots are. And RIT's got a great track record for decades for being a technology leader. You are just the right leader away from a massive opportunity, because Central Ohio is going to get to the point where it's not cost effective like it used to be, because we're growing so much with technology and data centers and such. Manufacturing. So where do you look? Rochester's only 10 hours from Central Ohio.
Yeah, and I drive there all the time to visit Dr. Mike, and you're gonna love listening to the episodes with him. So I love it. It's bringing out of state, and that's what they don't get. They forgot that Xerox, Kodak, Bausch and Lomb used to bring something called out of state dollars. Hello. Yes. And now they don't exist. So we're not getting those dollars anymore. But I love how you said you're one good leader away from a change, because a couple of years ago we had a mayor who had, I think it was 100 or 300 grand in cash and 3 kilos of coke and a bunch of assault rifles in her house. So you're one leader away. All we have to do is find someone who doesn't have rifles and cocaine, and then we'll be able to actually have an economy again, folks. It's that simple.
Yeah. It is that simple, but then it is also that daunting, because finding that one person, that one leader, and enough people agreeing on that one person and one leader, that's where I think your better bet is grassroots. I think your better bet is you create these pockets of synergistic entrepreneurial organizations. And I don't necessarily mean EO or YPO, although those could be an option. I just mean groups of people who are aligned in entrepreneurial solution-focused ideas that how do we attract out-of-state dollars to our efforts, and then how do we expand that? How do we duplicate that? And that's where you start getting that synergistic multiplication, as opposed to hoping that somebody from the top down is going to do this. If you're committed to staying in Western New York and Rochester in particular, find like-minded people, the ones who are going to take action, the ones who want to win today, and then win more today together. And that will attract anybody else in the area to that as well. And you'll start being this magnet for aligned people, and your grassroots will grow.
Instead of waiting and hoping for some magical program to bail you out. Yep. Imagine that. I'm
an eternal optimist, but I wouldn't bet on that long shot. I would bet on what you can do with and who you can do it with.
But unfortunately, that's what they're doing. So John Hanson, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but I kind of hope you come back and lead Rochester in some kind of way, because if you were mayor, we'd actually get something done.
Hey, an underperforming area, you have more potential to accomplish than an overperforming area.
Yeah, you got room. We got room to grow. We got nothing to lose.
All kinds of room.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a blue ocean of opportunity.
Absolutely. And like you said, we got the Finger Lakes and all that good stuff too. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where
Loved
can
it.
people... Awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
2 ways. So LinkedIn, John D. Hanson. The middle initial D is important because there are a bunch of John Hansons, but there's only one John D. Hanson if you Google it or if you hit LinkedIn. And then my website, johndhanson.com, are the 2 places. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got books out on Amazon. But if you go to my website or you go to LinkedIn, you can kind of get a feel for who I am because I do a lot of video.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And that's Hanson with an O. So John D. Hanson.
That's right.
Thank you so
That's right.
much. And we would love to have you anytime. And
when time flies, you know it was a great conversation because we need to fire each other up and anybody else that's listening too.
Absolutely. TheComputerExorcist.com. Buy my book for everyone you know. We'll talk to you next week.
It's all right now. Make it on my own. I paid my time and my dues, and now I'm coming home. First they give you an inch, and then they take